What I think's happened with David Cameron is that, you know, it was difficult for him because he once said that the biggest next scandal would be lobbying. This is the time of the MP's expenses crisis. And, of course, he found himself in the middle of a lobbying scandal with the whole Greensill thing. And I think that would have made it very difficult for him to have been popped into the Lords, because I think it would have been difficult to have passed the HOLAC vetting system, or process, rather. So I think what's happened is it's just been, you know, it's a job that's been created for him to pop him into the Lords. And, you know, if you're from Eton, that happens. Like, you know, the conversations just happen behind the scenes, and, you know, you're from Eton, we'll just pop you in, don't worry, we'll give you a job. That will sort all that out, you'll be in the Lords. So I think that's very much kind of what's happened, to rehabilitate his reputation. And, you know, frankly, he made a mistake over the whole Greensill lobbying thing. It was stupid, it was ridiculous, but, you know, to be charitable, he made a mistake. And it has tarnished he was Prime Minister for 11 years, so it did tarnish his reputation. And I think that, you know, does he deserve it? Well, you know, I think anybody who's served as Prime Minister, which is a very tough job, deserves to be in the Lords.
You haven't made it into the Lords.
Oh, well, that's different, you know. I'm from one of the most deprived areas in Liverpool and went to a secondary modern school. So there are no behind-the-scenes conversations, there are no jobs created if somebody doesn't like you. But actually, you know...
It was blocked by Rishi Sunak, right?
It was blocked. It was completely... I mean, Rishi Sunak did something that no Prime Minister has ever done before. And I've been told by people close to David Cameron that David Cameron said at the time Rishi shouldn't have done that. He's broken a precedent, and he's set a dangerous precedent for the future, because now other Prime Ministers will feel they have the right to interfere in their predecessors' lists, and it's a dangerous game to play, but Rishi played. And I absolutely know what happened to the last letter, and it was just blocked by those people around Rishi who said to him no. And it's because I was writing this book.
I mean, do you think... I mean, there are some people who might be saying, look, you got it in for Rishi Sunak now because you're bitter that your peerage was blocked.
Yeah, no, I don't know why anybody would say that. I started writing this book before the peerage was blocked. So I don't know why anyone would say that. What I'm kind of like concerned about, I suppose is the better word, is, you know, in 2019, Boris Johnson delivered 365 MPs back to Parliament, Conservative MPs. He got a bigger percentage of the vote share than Tony Blair did in the 97 landslide. We won the biggest Conservative majority in 40 years, a generation. We were going to govern for the country. And what's happened since is, you know, this group of men have installed Rishi Sunak, who they decided 7 years ago would be Prime Minister, by the way, and they just used Boris to get the majority to get Rishi in. And all the evidence for that, legally checked, is in the book. They wanted Rishi in, and they kind of like, the first thing they did was dump social care.
I mean, at the same time, though, you know, you're talking about delivery on things like levelling up, on things like social care. Boris Johnson's got to take a bit of responsibility for that, hasn't he? I mean, he was Prime Minister. What did he achieve? So social care was due to be launched weeks after he was removed. The same with the online safety bill. You know, it was ready to go, but that was stalled and diluted and watered down. There's so much that we've lost that we went to the country with the manifesto for in order to win such a big majority. It was a vision. All it's about now is personalities and manoeuvring. It's like the Conservative Party has become a big HR department. It's like various people who have their own personal ambitions are now being satisfied before we lose in a catastrophic general election. Talking about those people who are now around the top table after the events we've seen, someone pointed out to me that there are now the same number of former advisors to David Cameron around the cabinet table as MPs representing northern constituencies. There's also no women in the 4 great officers of state. I mean, does this matter?
Oh, it absolutely does. This now is about let's do what we can for our friends, the right people to get us through to a general election. It's shameless. It's divisive. You know, I've heard from MPs in Northern Wall seats who took their seats from Labour for the first time in a generation, who are just like, what is going on? How do they go to their constituents and say, you know, that this is a good thing, this is that the Conservative Party has changed for the better? Rishi was supposed to be the change candidate. Is this what he has changed for? Is this it?
Was it right to sack Suella Braverman? What's your take on that?
So I don't think it was right to sack Suella because, first of all, I don't believe the whole scenario, not for a second, that she wrote that op-ed and it wasn't signed off by Number 10. I just don't believe that.
What, so you think Number 10 are lying?
Yeah. Having been
a
Secretary of State myself, I know how that process between op-eds going into newspapers, and particularly, and it's always the Times, and I know exactly how that works. And the fact that Number 10 said, oh, we didn't sign it off, we asked for changes, I'm afraid I just don't believe it. It's poor leadership, and I think what the country is crying out for is leadership, and they're just not getting it at the moment. What they're getting is the moving of the deck chairs on the Titanic. That's all they're getting.
You describe Rishi Sunak in the book as sickly nice. What do you mean?
There's a kind of, well, if you saw him in his interview with Elon Musk, I think you know what I mean. The smile is not always genuine, and I'm sure you've read many times yourself and heard many times yourself that he's quick to anger, because that mask often slips.
What, have you seen that?
So, yeah, I've seen, yeah.
When did you see it?
It's just an irritability, you see. You know, it's like, it's very hard to put on an image, isn't it, all day? It's very hard to keep that fixed grin and that, you know, that cheerful, chappy demeanour all day long. When you're Prime Minister, it's like 24 hours a day. So I'm not surprised the mask slips, because it's quite hard to keep up that effort. And I think that's part of the problem.
I mean, there will be people listening to you, particularly allies of Rishi Sunak, and maybe some viewers as well, who think, look, you don't like Rishi Sunak, we get it, you're a Boris Johnson fan. This is coming off a little bit like sour grapes, the attacks on him. What would you say to that?
I completely understand that, and I wish it didn't. But the one thing I've done with this book is I've researched how Rishi became Prime Minister.
You say Michael Gove's the puppet master.
All roads lead back to Michael Gove. So Michael Gove was behind the removal of Ian Duncan Smith, Theresa May. He played a role in David Cameron's downfall because, of course, when David Cameron sacked him as Education Secretary and demoted him to Chief Whip, then everything began to go wrong for David Cameron. He was behind the removal of Ian Duncan Smith. It's, yeah, I mean, you know, read the book. It's all in the book. But all roads lead back to Michael Gove, who's had Dominic Cummings by his side for, 23 years? They're inseparable.
It feels to me that sometimes, and tell me if you think this is fair or not, people don't always take you seriously in Westminster, in the media, amongst your other MPs as well. And the thing that really struck me from the book, and also seeing interviews that you've done before and things you've spoken about before, is just how different your background is to a lot of people in Westminster. One thing, you know, that struck me was when you talked about, you know, sitting with a dog on your lap, you know, feeling the dog's stomach grumble because you hadn't been able to feed your dog. Can you just give people a bit of a sense about the kind of upbringing you had? Because it is very different, isn't it, from a lot of people?
Yeah, it is. You know, a journalist said to me the other day, do you feel like you're an outsider? And I think I replied and said, no, I feel like I'm an insider, because in my other life outside politics, it's very close, you know, so my family, my friends, you know, I'm still friends with the people I went to school with. So it's very close. You know, I'm 66, they're
Where did you go to
very
school?
old. Halewood, Liverpool and Anfield. So I'm still friends with the people that I went to school with when I was 5 years old. So I describe myself as an insider. And it's only when I thought afterwards that, you know, he was right. In terms of politics, I am an outsider. I'm a complete outsider. I don't think there's anybody in Westminster who's had my background. But also, and I say this at the risk of sounding like I'm blowing my own trumpet, I arrived, and I'm loath to say it, and I'm always loath to say it. And I think to myself, that's very much a woman thing, because if I was a man, I'd say it. I wouldn't hesitate. But, you know, I arrived in Westminster already with quite a substantial track record of achievement. I'd done 10 years in the NHS as a nurse. I'd established from an original idea my own business. I'd sold it at the time, which was, you know, a considerable sum of money to a blue chip company. You know, I've sold 3 million books. I'm an author who sold 3 million books. I've been through every level of ministerial. I've been a Secretary of State, you know. It's kind of like... So my record of achievement is not one that everybody else manages. And as a woman, I never said that. I've never spoken about it.
Do you feel a bit embarrassed saying it?
Yeah.
Because I kind of... I can identify with that, to be honest.
Yeah. And is that imposter syndrome? What is it? It's just that... But the men go around telling you exactly what their achievements are and exactly what they've done. As a woman, a politician, I've never gone into the Chief Whip's office or to David Cameron or to Boris Johnson and asked for a job. Staggered when I was researching this book to find out the men do it every day. The men walk in every day.
And pay rises as well. The other thing, you know, you talked about your sort of working class upbringing, having, you know, a different life to many people in Westminster. The other thing that really struck me, looking at your sort of backstory before you arrived in Westminster, is that you had experienced tragedy as well. Your dad died just before your 21st birthday. Your brother also lost his life in a road accident, I think it was.
Yeah.
I mean, this must have been massively shaping things that happened in your.
So yeah, it wasn't a normal background. I had my father was 42, and when I found him, he'd been dead for 7 days, and I'd been on night shifts at the hospital doing 7 nights on and staying at the nursing home. And my brother was 27, and he died in a road accident.
I'm really sorry. It's like it's awful. Like,
no, it's just it takes. You never get over it. You never ever get over it. And then my cousin took his own life, which telephoned me just before, which was they are like big life. They do change you very much, and I've got a daughter who's very much into psychotherapy and trained to be a counsellor. And she drives us all mad in the family because so you've got to go and have therapy. Everyone's got to have therapy. It's the answer to everything, apparently. And she keeps saying, you haven't resolved your grief issues. You need to go and have therapy. One day I might find time to do that.
Is that something you might do in the future?
Yeah. I think grief, it affects many people in many ways, but it's never something you can get over, I don't think. I don't think you ever fully get over grief. And I've yet to explore grief counselling, but as mental health minister, I learned a lot about it. And I think my daughter's right. Possibly one day that is an avenue I will go down.
The other thing I read about you is that you have experience of having a stalker as well.
Oh, gosh, yeah.
Would you recommend, there's a lot of scrutiny...
I wouldn't have gone through now what I went through then, because since Joe Cox and David Amos, he was before Joe Cox, and I went through 9 years.
Was that as an MP?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He stopped me because I was an MP. It ended up in court. They love to have their day in court, stalkers. And he took me to court, which was great because it was thrown out within 25 minutes and he had to pay all court costs, which he did do the next day. Would
you recommend to women now that they should go into politics?
No, and I know I sound like I'm very much, like not a feminist for saying that. And, I've got 3 daughters all around your age, Sophie, who I support hugely through their careers. But if any one of them said to me that they wanted to be an MP, I would be horrified. Westminster is an awful place to work.
Has it got better?
No.
No.
We've got more women in some way. So if you read the book, it's there. Read the book. But it's the behaviour of MPs, I think, has got worse, and I think it's been facilitated by social media. And social media has made a huge difference to both the role of an MP and what the workplace is like, full stop, And I think it's, Westminster's a pretty gross place. It's like overrun with rats and mice. And that's not the MPs, that's actual live rodents,
Like the clarification there.
Yeah, I wouldn't want my girls working there.
Now that you are saying goodbye to Westminster, you've written your book, what are you most looking forward to? Oh, gosh. So I've got my column every Monday in Daily Mail. I've got my TV show on Talk TV on Friday afternoons. Come on, there must be something outside of work that you were looking forward to. Oh, so, I know this sounds absolutely boring, but I grow all the family's vegetables, so I'm just looking forward to go. What's your top vegetable? The one that you're really good at nailing? Well, I'm quite good at all of them, actually. Oh, really? No, I have no luck with brassicas. So, yeah, I don't know. No luck with sprouts. But, no, I want to do... And I want to travel a bit more as well. I haven't travelled for a long time for pleasure. It's all been for work. So I'm looking forward to travelling for pleasure again. OK, thank you very much indeed. Thank you.